Well, this issue actually came up several years ago. We have a young man at home. He's 11 years old. At the time, he was about 8. And we actually saw this. This problem goes back, probably since the beginning. And it's been an issue that's occurred with basically any products that a child can reach and open. They can get poisoned if they drink it. Nicotine is not a good thing for children to be consuming, whether they drink it or anything. So when we got into that problem, we basically did a few things. The first was the danger icon on the front of the bottle. And when you name a product something and put a danger symbol on the front, that's a pretty universal symbol for children to know not to drink it. The first step I would always encourage is for parents of any kind to teach their children what the icons on different types of products mean, like bleach or soap or whatever, so that a child will look at that danger icon and see it. That's probably the first step, is education. The second thing we did was put a child-proof cap on the top. And that only goes so far. I mean, that really just stops a very weak child or someone that gives up easily from opening it, because it will spin and spin and spin. But once you figure out how to push it down and open it, the cap comes off pretty simple, right? And then the last solution to that is really keeping the bottles out of reach. It's an interesting question, because what are the good things that we can learn from the tobacco industry? One of the good things that was learned from that regarding children was not to expose children to smoking as much as possible. A lot of people keep their cigarettes hidden, they smoke outside away from the kids. I know that we did. Me and my wife never smoked inside or in the car or anything. We always smoked outside. And we tried not to impact our family at all with it, or as little as possible. We talked about the dangers and what was bad about it, but it comes across a bit hypocritical when you're doing it anyway, because children tend to mimic their parents in a lot of ways. So with our children, we've basically talked about the differences between this and a cigarette, why we do it. We've been candid about the addiction. We've been honest about the danger sign and why you don't want to drink liquid, despite the fact that it may taste like a fruit flavor or something or whatever. We've kept the bottles out of reach. We don't keep a lot on hand. I mean, we keep a few in a cupboard that we keep safe, and the child-proof cap on the top. Yeah, there's a lot of good things about that, but at the end of the day, I think those are really the main solutions that we came up with for dealing with that.
Okay.
I agree completely. The e-cigarette industry, there's going to be a hot topic, and it's been a hot topic for a long time, and it boils down to, do you regulate a product or do you not? And the reason why that's always going to be a heavily debated topic is because there's so many different valid viewpoints. There's the one extreme end that calls for no regulation at all. That tends to keep prices low, that tends to keep taxes away, that tends to keep free trade open, meaning if someone has a small amount of money in a will, they can get into the industry. So it breeds competition, and it breeds lots of people's creativity, engaging. And then you've got the other end, which is the highly regulated side, which is usually, higher taxes, much more money to get involved, permits and all sorts of things. That do the opposite. They prevent people from entering the industry easily. They make it difficult to get products from an R&D stage to an actual launch, and so forth. But then you look at the positive ends of that as well. Product tends to be safer. It tends to be much more transparent to the public. It tends to be better packaged, better handled, easier to prevent the problems, and there's a governing body that can stop things like what happened in the previous question. If there are something negative that's occurring, they can mandate a label, a type of bottle, a type of marketing, a type of packaging or whatever that protects things. So There's a whole bunch of different viewpoints on it. My personal position is I think the manufacturing end of e-juice should be regulated. I think the way that occurs should take time. I think it should be done cleverly and with the input of not just a handful of big companies or something. I think it should be done much broader, and I think those decisions should be based on facts. What's actually happening? If there are thousands of people being poisoned, if that occurred, then that should be looked at carefully, and a solution should be developed to solve that problem. My fear is that we get lumped into the tobacco industry's history, and they start sticking us behind power walls with giant danger signs and all sorts of scary things that really isn't fair given our platform, especially considering the differences in safety between the two products. I'd also like to see the manufacturers have much more stringent quality controls, especially on ingredients. I think companies that provide flavorings or materials that go into e-juice, I think those should also have some type of regulating body that ultimately says this flavor is okay to use, this flavor is not, so that the guessing game and the pile of money we have to spend and effort that goes into making sure something's safe is kind of done ahead of time. And I think that would make it a little bit more difficult for the average person to enter into the business, but not that much more difficult, while at the same time giving a customer a much more transparent viewpoint. If I saw an icon on a bottle that told me that the ingredients in it were approved by a government body, I'm going to feel a lot better about that, because regardless of how they mix it together, it should be safe because of that. And the last thing I really want to see is a very stringent control on the amount of nicotine in bottles. I have tested hundreds of bottles from different competitors and things, and the thing we see the most that's very widely different is you'll see a bottle say 18 milligram, and I've seen them as high as 21, 22, 14, 15. These are on large companies, mass-produced businesses. I've seen them wildly off from small companies, like triple the nicotine it says, or half, or just crazy differences. And that boils down to process, and I hate to say it, but incompetence, not understanding the mathematics or the controls and so forth. What blows my mind is I haven't personally been aware of any company that has poisoned their own staff by working with nicotine concentrations. The amount of effort that goes in our facility to protect the staff is pretty high, and it surprises me that people don't get sick more often from that.